نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الذين يقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة وهم بالآخرة هم يوقنون وقال الله سبحانه وتعالى خذ من أموالهم صدقة تطهرهم وتزكيهم بها وصل عليهم وقال الله سبحانه وتعالى والذين يكنزون الذهب والفضة ولا ينفقونها في سبيل الله فبشرهم بعذاب أليم يوم يحمى عليها في نار جهنم فتكوى بها جباههم وجنوبهم وظهورهم هذا ما كنزتم لأنفسكم فذوقوا ما كنتم تكنزون صدق الله العظيم. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بني الإسلام على خمس شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا رسول الله وإيتاء الزكاة والصلاة وصوم رمضان والحج أو كما قال رسول الله صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم. بزرگوں، دوستوں اور بھائیوں، اللہ سبحانہ و تعالیٰ کا بہت بڑا احسان ہے کہ اللہ نے دنیا کا نظام اس طرح چلایا ہے کہ ہم ایک دوسرے سے منسلک رہتے ہیں، ایک دوسرے سے وابستہ رہتے ہیں. کسی کو کچھ بنایا، کسی کو کچھ اور بنایا. مثلا کوئی بزنس مین ہے، تاجر ہے، تو کوئی فارمر ہے، تو کوئی ڈاکٹر ہے، تو کوئی لائر ہے، تو کوئی دوسرا پیشہ رکھتا ہے، تاکہ ڈاکٹر اپنی ضرورت فارمر سے پوری کرے، فارمر اپنی ضرورت ڈاکٹر سے لے ضرورت پڑے. تو اسی طرح بزنس مین ساری چیزیں لوگوں کو پرووائڈ کرے. بلکہ باڈی کے مختلف اعضاء کے مختلف الگ الگ اسپیشلسٹ ہوتے ہیں، تو وہ اپنا اپنا کام کرتا ہے. اگر کسی کو پیٹ کا آپریشن کرنا ہے تو کہیں اور ڈاکٹر کے پاس جاتا ہے، آنکھوں کا ہوتا ہے تو وہی اور جاتا ہے، دانتوں کا کچھ ہو تو دینٹسٹ کے پاس جاتا ہے. مطلب کہ اللہ تعالیٰ نے تقسیم اس طرح رکھی ہے کہ ہر ایک کو الگ الگ کوالٹی دی ہے تاکہ ایک دوسرے سے ربط رہے. اسی طرح اللہ تعالیٰ نے پیدا کرنے میں بھی کسی کو مرد بنایا، کسی کو عورت بنایا، تاکہ مرد اپنی ڈیوٹی ادا کرے، عورتیں اپنی ڈیوٹی ادا کرے، اور یہ دنیا کا سرکل چلتا رہے. اسی طرح روزی میں بھی اللہ تعالیٰ نے تقسیم کی ہے کہ کسی کو مالدار بنایا، کسی کو غریب بنایا. واللہ فضل بعضکم علی بعض فی الرزق، کہ ایک دوسرے کے اوپر روزی کے اندر فضیلت دی ہے، یعنی زیادہ کسی کو دیا، کسی کو کم دیا ہے، تاکہ زیادہ جس کو دیا ہے وہ اللہ کا نائب بن کر جس کے پاس کچھ نہیں ہے یا کم ہے اس کی مدد کر کے اللہ کی خوشنودی حاصل کرے، اور جس کے پاس کم ہے وہ جس کے پاس زیادہ ہے ان کے پاس جا کر اپنی ضرورت پیش کرے، یا ان کو پتہ چلے کہ فلاں آدمی ضرورت مند ہے تو وہاں جا کر اس کی ہمدردی کرتا ہے، تو آپس میں محبتیں ہوتی ہے. تو مطلب یہ ہے کہ یہ دنیا کو اللہ تعالیٰ نے ایک دوسرے کے ساتھ مرتبط رکھی ہے، ایک دوسرے کے ساتھ کنیکشن رکھا ہے کہ ہر ایک دوسرے سے اپنی ضرورتیں پورا کرے اور یہ دنیا چلتی رہے. تو بنی الاسلام خمس میں یہی ہے کہ بدنی عبادتیں بھی ہے، مالی عبادتیں بھی ہے، کہ جس کو اللہ تعالیٰ نے صحت، تندرستی اور پورا بدن ماشاءاللہ قوت والا دیا ہے وہ اپنے طور پر عبادت کریں، اور جو کمزور ہے، بوڑھا ہے یا ہینڈی کیپ ہے وہ اپنی جتنی طاقت ہوتی ہے اس اعتبار سے صلاۃ اور نماز عبادت ادا کرے. اسی طرح مالی عبادت، زکوٰۃ، یہ بھی ہر ایک شخص اپنے طور پر دیتا ہے، کسی کو پاس کتنا مال ہے، کسی کے پاس کتنا ہے، وہ کتنا دیتا ہے، یہ سب اللہ تعالیٰ نے ایک دوسرے کے ساتھ مرتبط کیا ہے، متعلق کیا ہے، تاکہ دنیا کا نظام چلتا رہے۔ تو جہاں مالی عبادت، بدنی عبادت فرض کی ہے اللہ نے، نماز بدنی عبادت ہے، روزہ بدنی عبادت ہے، حج مالی اور بدنی دونوں قسم کی عبادتیں ہیں، اور زکوٰۃ مالی عبادت ہے۔ اس کو کمانے میں اگرچہ بدن بھی خرچ ہوتا ہے، لیکن جب عبادت ادا کرتا ہے تو وہ مال دیا جاتا ہے اس میں۔ تو یہ ساری عبادتیں بھی ایسی ہیں کہ جو اللہ نے بندوں کو ایک دوسرے کے ساتھ متعلق کر کے بندے پر فرض کی ہے۔ تو آج اسلام کا ایک بہت بڑا رکن زکوٰۃ، جیسے نماز فرض ہے اسی طرح زکوٰۃ بھی فرض ہے۔ اگر کوئی نماز اور زکوٰۃ میں فرق کرے کہ نماز تو فرض ہے لیکن زکوٰۃ فرض نہیں ہے، تو وہ مرتد کہلائے گا، اسلام سے خارج کہلائے گا۔ نبی پاک صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کی وفات کے بعد کچھ منافقوں نے زکوٰۃ کا انکار کر دیا تھا، تو سیدنا ابوبکر رضی اللہ تعالیٰ عنہ نے ان کے ساتھ جہاد کرنے کا کہا کہ کوئی ایک رسی بھی اگر حضور کے زمانے میں زکوٰۃ کی دیتا تھا اور آج وہ نہیں دے گا تو میں اس کے ساتھ جہاد کروں گا، کیونکہ جیسے نماز فرض ہے ویسے ہی زکوٰۃ بھی اللہ تعالیٰ نے بندوں پر فرض کی ہے۔
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Our respected Imam Hafidhullah started off with some ayat of the Quran and some ahadith related to zakat. He then starts off by saying that there are many favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon the creation, and one such favor is that He has made us different with different professions. There are some who are doctors, some that are engineers, some that are farmers, some that do labor work, some that sit in an office, and each fulfills a need of the other, to the extent that there are doctors that specialize in certain parts of the body as well. So if you want a treatment for a particular body part, you will go to a particular doctor, brain surgeons, or any other part of the body. If someone needs work on their teeth, you go to the dentist. Likewise, similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made two genders, male and female. Each has their own role. They each support each other. They each fulfill each other's needs. And likewise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also made this distinction and separation in wealth as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given some wealth and some He has given less. The ones that have more are instructed and are guided to help those that are less fortunate. In short, the world is connected in this sense, and this is the cycle of life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it such that we support each other and we help each other. When it comes to the topic of discussion today, we are here, alhamdulillah, gathered here to discuss the topic of zakat. Zakat is one of the pillars of Islam. There are two categories of ibadat and forms of worship. One is that form of worship which has to do with the physical aspect, like physical forms of worship. For example, salah, or fasting, saum. And then there's a form of worship that has to do with your wealth, financial, monetary, which is zakat. And then there's a combination of the two, which is hajj. So zakat is a very important pillar of Islam. Anyone that denies the obligation of zakat would be out of the fold of Islam. Like when the Prophet ﷺ left this world, Abu Bakr radiallahu anh became his successor, and there were some who became murtad and who had left the deen of Islam, and some refused to give zakat. They were of the opinion that we would only give it to the Prophet ﷺ, and now that he is not here, we don't need to give zakat anymore. Abu Bakr radiallahu anh waged war against them, and he said that so long as they don't pay even a shoestring that they used to pay in the time of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, I will wage war against them. This is an obligation upon every Muslim.
اللہ تعالیٰ نے اتنا احسان فرمایا ہے ان عبادتوں میں کہ عمر کے ایک حصے کے بعد عبادت فرض کی ہے۔ مثلا جب تک بچپنا ہوتا ہے، نابالغ مرد، نابالغ بچہ یا نابالغ لڑکی ہوتی ہے، وہاں تک وہ اسلام کے کسی حکم کا مکلف نہیں ہوتا۔ اس پر نہ نماز فرض ہوتی ہے، نہ زکوٰۃ فرض ہوتی ہے، نہ روزہ، نہ حج فرض نہیں ہوتا۔ جب بالغ ہو جاتا ہے تو مکلف کہلاتا ہے، یعنی اس کے اوپر سارے فرائض اللہ کی طرف سے عائد ہوتے ہیں۔ زکوٰۃ کا بھی یہی مسئلہ ہے کہ جب تک لڑکا یا لڑکی نابالغ ہوتا ہے وہاں تک زکوٰۃ فرض نہیں ہوتی، چاہے اس کے پاس کتنا بھی مال ہو، اس کی ملکیت میں ہو، لیکن وہ فرض نہیں ہوتی۔ ایک بات۔ دوسری بات یہ ہے کہ جو بالغ ہو جاتا ہے اس میں بھی مال آ جانے کے بعد فوراً زکوٰۃ اللہ تعالیٰ نے فرض نہیں کی ہے، بلکہ وہ جب سے نصاب کا مالک ہوا، اس کے پاس مال آیا، تو اللہ سبحانہ و تعالیٰ نے اس کو 1 سال کا ٹائم دیا۔ 1 سال کا اس کو ٹائم دیا کہ 1 سال تم لگاؤ، انویسٹ کرو، کماؤ، اور اس کے بعد جو مال میں برکت ہو اس میں سے تمہاری جو سیونگ ہو، پورے سال کے خرچ کے بعد جو سیونگ ہو، اس سیونگ میں سے فقط 2.5% غریب لوگوں کو، محتاجوں کو دو۔ تو 1 سال کا کمانے کا ٹائم بھی دیا، اور اس کے بعد بھی جو فرض کیا وہ بھی اپنے پورے خرچ کے بعد جو سیونگ ہوتا ہے اس میں 2.5% اللہ تعالیٰ نے فرض کیا ہے۔ یہ اللہ کا کرم ہوا، ورنہ شروع میں صحابہ کے زمانے میں جب شروع میں احکام نازل ہوتے سے تو قرآن کریم میں ہے کہ اللہ تعالیٰ سے رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم سے صحابہ نے عرض کیا یسألونک ماذا ينفقون، کہ وہ آپ سے پوچھتے ہیں کہ ہم کیا خرچ کریں اللہ کے راستے میں، کیا دیوے؟ تو اس وقت جواب یہ آیا قل العفو، جتنا بھی تمہارے پاس زائد ہو وہ سب دے دو، اپنے ضرورت کے بعد جتنا بھی زائد ہو وہ سب دے دو۔ لیکن رفتہ رفتہ احکام جب مرتب ہوئے تو سیونگ اور زائد کے اوپر صرف 2.5% اللہ تعالیٰ نے فرض کیا ہے، اتنی آسانی کر دی ہے، نمبر ایک۔ دوسرا نمبر یہ ہے کہ زکوٰۃ کن مالوں پر فرض ہوتی ہے؟ تو اگر آپ ٹوٹل دیکھا جائے تو زکوٰۃ صرف 3 قسم کے مالوں پر فرض ہوتی ہے: سونا، چاندی اور کیش۔ کیش جو ہماری رقم ہوتی ہے، جو پیسے ہمارے پاس ہوتے ہیں، وہ بھی سونا چاندی کے گنتی میں آ جاتی ہے، گولڈ، سلور اور کیش، یہ ایک۔ نمبر دو، جو سامان تجارت کا ہو، بزنس کا ہو، بزنس کے علاوہ چاہے آپ کے پاس کتنا بھی سامان ہو اس پر کوئی زکوٰۃ فرض نہیں ہے۔ جس کی آپ تجارت کرتے ہو تو تجارت کے مال میں زکوٰۃ فرض ہے۔ اور نمبر تین، جانوروں پر، کہ جانور کے ریوڑ ہوتے ہیں تو اس پر سال کی گزرنے کے بعد کتنا فرض ہوتا ہے، کتنے سال کا بچہ دینا پڑتا ہے، کتنے سال کی بکری ہو یا گائے ہو، یہ سب الگ نصاب ہوتا ہے۔ وہ نصاب ہم یہاں اس وقت ذکر نہیں کریں گے کیونکہ ہمیں اس سے کوئی ابھی ضرورت نہیں ہے۔ البتہ یہ 2 چیزیں ہیں کہ سونا چاندی اور زکوٰۃ، سونا چاندی اور کیش، اور نمبر 2 پر مال تجارت، تجارت کا مال۔ نمبر 3، ایک بات یہ یاد رکھنی چاہیے زکوٰۃ میں اصولی طور پر کہ اسلام نے عورتوں پر جو احسان کیا ہے، آپ کو معلوم ہوگا کہ زمانہ اسلام سے پہلے عورتوں پر کتنا کتنا ظلم کیا جاتا تھا، اور معاشرے کی کیسی ایک دم لوور قسم کی ان کو مخلوق سمجھا جاتا تھا، لیکن اسلام نے آ کر جو ان کو عزت دی ہے، جو ان کا احترام بڑھایا ہے، اس میں اللہ تعالیٰ نے باقاعدہ ان کی کمائی کو بھی مستقل ایک کمائی بنایا ہے، اور ان کی بھی مستقل ایک ملکیت تسلیم کی ہے۔ اللہ تعالیٰ نے فرمایا للرجال نصیب مما اکتسبوا وللنساء نصیب مما اکتسبن واسألوا اللہ من فضلہ، کہ مردوں کے لیے وہ سارا ہے جو انہوں نے کمایا، عورتوں کے لیے وہ سارا ہے جو انہوں نے کمایا، پر ہر ایک کو اللہ کی روزی ڈھونڈنی چاہیے، اللہ سے روزی مانگنا چاہیے۔ تو زکوٰۃ کے ادا کرنے میں بھی یہی رولنگ ہے کہ ہم اس میں بہت مکس کر دیتے ہیں، غلط یعنی مکس کر دیتے ہیں، سمجھتے نہیں ہے۔ ہسبینڈ وائف ہو یا ماں باپ ہو یا بھائی بہن ہو، تو یہ سب مکس کر لیتے ہیں، حالانکہ اسلام نے ہر ایک کی ملکیت کو الگ مستقلاً تسلیم کیا ہے۔ جو ہسبینڈ کا ہے وہ ہسبینڈ کا کہلائے گا، وہ مکلف ہے تو اس پر زکوٰۃ فرض ہوگی۔ جو وائف کا ہے وہ وائف کا کہلائے گا، وہ مکلف ہے، اس پر زکوٰۃ فرض ہوگی۔ ماں اور باپ میں ماں کا الگ ہوگا، باپ کا الگ ہوگا۔ بھائی اور بہن میں بھائی کے الگ کمائی، بہن کے الگ کمائی ہے۔ تو یہ سب اپنے اپنے طور پر بالغ ہیں، مکلف ہیں، لہذا جیسے نماز ہر ایک پر اپنی فرض ہوتی ہے، ویسے زکوٰۃ بھی ہر ایک پر اپنی فرض ہوتی ہے، مکس نہیں ہوتی۔
So it is also amongst the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has only obligated zakat after maturity. Like many actions, salah or any other actions that are obligated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a person is only mukallaf and accountable once they mature. Before maturity, they are not accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So zakat is also not fard upon those that are not mature yet. Additionally, another favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that He has not made zakat compulsory right upon attaining wealth. Rather, He has given the time of a year. Once a year lapses after a person gains the amount of nisab, then zakat will become fard. Uh, in the early stages of Islam, as the Shaykh was mentioning, that in the early stages of Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had obligated much more to give in charity. Then gradually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reduced, and it is also from the mercy and favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has kept it only 2.5% that we are obligated to give. Now the question is, what is zakat fard upon? What do we give zakat upon? So there are two or three categories. Now, number one, gold, silver, and cash. The gold, silver, and cash can be categorized together. In reality, cash is representative of gold and silver. Number two, business wealth, anything that a person has for business. And number three, livestock, animals, people who are in the farming field, which is not really relevant to us, so we probably won't be discussing that today. Uh, Maybe the first two categories. So any gold, silver, cash, or anything that has to do with business, with the intention of business. Another point that we need to keep in mind is that women also have to give zakat, and it is compulsory for men and women separately to give their zakat. This was also a favor of Islam upon us, that Islam recognized the ownership and possession of women yani when 1400 years ago, when the status of women was yani is well known to us, where they were considered inferior in society. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recognized that women can also earn, they can also possess, and their ownership was recognized by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The women will also give zakat, and men will also give zakat, and they will give their each zakat.
زکوٰۃ کے ادا کرنے والوں کو اللہ تعالیٰ کا بہت بڑا احسان ماننا چاہیے اور خوش دلی سے زکوٰۃ ادا کرنا چاہیے، اس لیے کہ اگر اللہ چاہتے تو ہمیں مالدار کی بجائے غریب بنا دیتے اور کوئی اور ہمیں زکوٰۃ دیتا، لیکن اس حال میں اللہ نے رکھا ہے کہ ہمیں مال دیا اور ہم دوسروں کو دیتے ہیں، تو مال دیا ہوا بھی اللہ کا ہوتا ہے۔ اللہ دیکھتے ہیں کہ میں جو مال دیتا ہوں ان کو، تو میرے دیے ہوئے مال میں یہ میری نیابت کرتا ہے یا نہیں، میرا نائب بن کر میرے دوسرے بندوں کو، حاجت مند بندوں کو دیتا ہے یا نہیں۔ تو قرآن کریم میں تقریباً 27 جگہ پر نماز کے ساتھ زکوٰۃ کا حکم فرمایا ہے، اور نبی کریم صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کو مستقل خطاب کر کے فرمایا ہے کہ خذ من اموالہم صدقۃ تطہرہم وتزکیہم، کہ آپ ان کے مالوں میں سے زکوٰۃ لیجئے اور ان کو پاک کیجئے اور ان کے اندر برکت کی دعا کیجئے۔ تو لفظ زکوٰۃ کا معنی دو، عربی زکوٰۃ کا عربی لفظ ہے، اس کے دو معنی ہوتے ہیں۔ ایک تو یہ ہے کہ پاک کرنا، پاک کرنے کا مطلب یہ ہے، حضور نے یہ بھی فرمایا ہے کہ زکوٰۃ جو ہم نکالتے ہیں جتنا 2.5%، یہ پورے ہمارے ویلتھ کا جو ہے وہ میل ہے، یعنی وہ میل جب نکل جاتا ہے تو آدمی پاک ہو جاتا ہے، صاف ہو جاتا ہے۔ بھائی آپ کو فون پر بات کرنا ہو تو باہر چلے جائے پلیز۔ If you want to use the phone, please go outside. زکوٰۃ کا ایک معنی تو ہے پاک کرنا. تو آدمی جب زکوٰۃ دے دیتا ہے تو دوسرا سارا مال پاک ہو جاتا ہے. پاک ہو جاتا ہے، اس میں کوئی گندگی نہیں رہتی، اس میں بالکل خالص ہو جاتا ہے وہ. اور اس کا دوسرا معنی برکت کا بھی ہوتا ہے. جتنا آدمی دے دیتا ہے بقیہ مال میں اللہ تعالیٰ برکت عطا فرماتا ہے. برکت کا مطلب یہ نہیں ہے کہ 10,000 کے 15,000 ہو جائے. برکت کا مطلب یہ ہے کہ اللہ تعالیٰ بہت ساری مصیبتوں کو دور کر دیتے ہیں، آنے والی مصیبتوں کو. آپ کے جہاں $100 کا خرچ کرنا ہوتا ہے وہاں اللہ تعالیٰ $50 میں آپ کا کام بنا دیتا ہے. یہ ساری برکتیں کہلاتی ہے. تھوڑے میں کام چل جاتا ہے اور اللہ تعالیٰ بیماریوں کو دور کر دیتا ہے، بیماری نہیں دیتا، تاکہ وہ آپ کے مال میں بھی برکت بنے. تو زکوٰۃ پاکی کا بھی سبب ہے، زکوٰۃ برکت کا بھی سبب ہے. جیسے ظاہری پاکی اور برکت ہوتی ہے، ویسے باطنی آدمی کے اندر جو دلوں میں ایک گندگیاں ہوتی ہے، بخل کی، کنجوسی کی، وہ بھی اس سے دور ہوتی ہے. اور آدمی خوش دلی سے اللہ کے راہ میں خرچ کرتا ہے تو آدمی کی بخیلی بھی دور ہوتی ہے. یہ زکوٰۃ کے فائدے ہوتے ہیں دنیا کے اندر. اور آخرت میں زکوٰۃ ادا کرنے والوں کے لیے جنت کا فیصلہ ہے. آخرت میں زکوٰۃ ادا کرنے والوں کے لیے مستقل اس کا دروازہ ہے. جیسے روزے کے لیے باب الریان ہے، اسی طرح مالی عبادت کے لیے بھی مستقل اعزاز کے ساتھ اللہ تعالیٰ ان کو جنت میں پہنچاتے ہیں. اور نہ دینے پر، جیسے نماز کے نہ پڑھنے پر سخت وعیدیں ہیں، ویسے زکوٰۃ کے ادا نہ کرنے پر بھی سخت وعیدیں ہیں. مال کی جو زکوٰۃ ادا نہیں کرتا تو ان کے گلے میں طوق پہنا جائے گا اس مال کا. قرآن کریم میں اللہ تعالیٰ نے مستقل آیت نازل کی کہ جو اپنے مالوں کو ذخیرہ بنا کر رکھتا ہے، والذین یکنزون الذہب والفضہ، جو سونا چاندی کو، پیسے کو سٹاک کر کے رکھتا ہے، ذخیرہ بنا کر رکھتا ہے اور اللہ کی راہ میں خرچ نہیں کرتا، ولا ينفقونها فی سبیل اللہ فبشرهم بعذاب علیم. اللہ نے فرمایا کہ ان کو دردناک عذاب کی خوشخبری دے دی. جو عذاب کی کوئی خوشخبری نہیں ہوتی، دھمکی ہوتی ہے، لیکن اللہ تعالیٰ نے لفظ بھی ایسا استعمال کیا کہ ان کے لیے تو دردناک عذاب ہوگا. اور عذاب کیسا ہوگا اس کی بھی کیفیت آگے بیان کی. یوم یحمى علیہا فی نار جہنم فتقوی بہا جباہم. یہ مال سونا چاندی کی اور کیس کی سلیٹیں بنائی جائے گی، تختیاں بنائی جائے گی اور اس کو گرم گرم تپایا جائے گا آگ، اور اس سے اس کی پیشانی کو بھی، اس سے پہلو کو بھی، اس کے پیٹھ کو بھی داغا جائے گا، گرم اس سے عذاب دیا جائے گا. یہ ساری وعیدیں مال کے حقوق ادا نہ کرنے پر ہے. تو جب مال کے حقوق ادا کر دیں گے تو اللہ تعالیٰ برکت عطا کریں گے، پاک کر دیں گے. اور اگر حقوق ادا نہیں کیا تو یہی مال ہمارے لیے وبال جان بن جاتا ہے. اسی لیے مال کے بارے میں آپ پورے قرآن و حدیث میں کہیں یہ نہیں دیکھیں گے کہ اللہ نے اور اللہ کے رسول نے کوئی لمٹ کمانے کی مقرر کی ہو کہ 100,000 200,000 آپ نے کما لیے، بس اب زیادہ نہیں کما سکتے. کوئی ایسی لمٹ نہیں ہے. چاہے اتنا کماؤ، ملینوں کماؤ، لیکن اس کے اندر جو حقوق ہے اللہ کے وہ ادا کرو تو یہی مال خیر بن جاتا ہے. قرآن کریم میں بہت ساری جگہ مال کو خیر بھی فرمایا ہے. یہ جنت میں لے جانے کا ذریعہ بنا ہے تو یہ خیر بھی ہے، اور اگر اس کے حق ادا نہیں کیا تو یہ شر بھی بن جاتا ہے. تو کمائیے، اللہ نے جو صحت تندرستی دی ہے تو کمائیے، دوسرے کے بلبوتے پر نہ رہیں کہ فلاں مجھے دے گا اور فلاں مجھے میری کفالت کرے گا. اپنی جوانی کو خرچ کرو اور دوسروں کے لیے مفید بنو.
Zakat is also a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to see who gives it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed some with it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given some less, and it's also a form of test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to see whether the person fulfills its rights or not. Zakat itself is a means of increase in wealth. So when we look at the term and the word zakat in the Arabic language, there are two meanings that can possibly come from it. One means to purify. So when we're giving zakat on an annual basis, it's as if we are purifying the wealth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us by taking out the portion that He has obligated, the 2.5%, we are giving it out. And by giving that out, we are purifying the remainder of the wealth that we have. Number two, it's also a means of increase in blessings. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by means of us giving charity and us giving zakat will remove difficulties, troubles, etc. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps remove the inner diseases of the individual of greed, love for wealth, love for the world, by this person having the courage to take money and give others. And this will decrease the love of wealth in the heart of this individual as well. There is great reward for giving zakat. Obviously, the rewards are always mentioned and well understood. But likewise, there are great warnings for a person who does not give zakat. There was an ayah of the Quran that was quoted where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that those who treasure their gold and silver and they don't give and they don't spend in the path of Allah, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, give them the glad tidings of a dreadful punishment. There is a very dangerous and very dreadful punishment awaiting that individual. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala further describes that punishment, and He says that that gold and silver that the person hoarded, kept to himself, treasured, and didn't spend in the path of Allah, that gold and silver will be made into plates, and these plates will be heated in the fire of Jahannam. And then after it's heated in the fire of Jahannam, then this individual will be branded with these plates. So it's a very stern warning from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for not fulfilling the rights of the wealth. As it was mentioned that of course the wealth that a person has is the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept some rights in it that we need to fulfill. And there's no limit for how much a person can earn, and there's nothing wrong about it either. If a person works hard and they strive and they earn hundreds of thousands and millions, a person is a millionaire or a billionaire, alhamdulillah, good for that individual. There's nothing wrong with being wealthy. Many of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum were extremely wealthy. But as long as this individual fulfills the rights of the wealth that he has or she has, and they take out the portion Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has obligated, then this is nothing wrong with that. Rather, we are encouraged to do that. We are encouraged to go out. We are encouraged to earn. We are encouraged to increase our possession and our property and be a means of benefit to others. So there are those that are less fortunate. Perhaps they are not able to earn. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you the talent that you can earn. Go out, earn, and be a means of assisting those who are less fortunate.
शरीयत में ज़कात का मीनिंग क्या होता है? इस्लामी शरीयत में ज़कात किसको कहा जाता है फ़िक़ही एतबार से? फ़ुक़हा ने ज़कात की तारीफ़ की है तमलीकु मालिन मख़सूसिन लिशख़्सिन मख़सूसिन बिनियति, मख़सूस माल का मालिक बना देना। मख़सूस माल से मुराद 2.5%, अपने दौलत में से 2.5% का मालिक बना देना, बिल्कुलिया मुकम्मल तौर पर दे देना, अपना कोई नफ़ा उससे हासिल ना हो, फिर उसी को मालिक बना देना। तमलीक मालिन मख़सूसिन, तो तमलीक का माना है कि किसी को इस तरह मालिक बना देना कि आपका कोई हक़ इस पर रहे नहीं फिर उस माल में, तमलीक। और मालिन मख़सूसिन से मुराद 2.5%। लिशख़्सिन मख़सूसिन, मख़सूस आदमी को। मख़सूस आदमी से क्या मुराद है? कुरान करीम में पूरी 8 किस्म की कैटेगरी बयान की है। इन्नमस्सदक़ातु लिलफ़ुक़राइ वल वल आमिलीन अलैहा, ये पूरी आयत जो है 8 किस्म की कैटेगरी बयान की है जिनको ये ज़कात का माल दिया जाता है। तो लिशख़्सिन मख़सूसिन से ये मुराद है। और बेनियतिही, ज़कात की नीयत के साथ। ज़कात हर अमल के लिए नीयत ज़रूरी है। नीयत के बग़ैर चाहे हम रोज़ा रखें, आदमी बग़ैर नीयत के सारा दिन भूखा प्यासा रहे तो उसका रोज़ा नहीं होगा। तो रोज़े के लिए जैसे नीयत शर्तें हैं, नमाज के लिए नीयत शर्तें हैं, हज के लिए शर्तें हैं, वैसे ज़कात देते वक्त भी नीयत ज़रूरी है। अगर बग़ैर नीयत के आपने, मसलन आपके पास कोई बोरो करने आया है कि मुझे $5,000 की ज़रूरत है, आप ज़रा मुझे काम लगाइए, मैं आपको 6 महीने के बाद वापस कर दूंगा। आपने उसको $5,000 दे दिए, बोरो किए थे, उसने आपने दे दिए उसको। अब देखा कि 1 साल गुज़र गया, 2 साल गुज़र गया और वो नहीं दे रहा है, آپ نے اسے مانگا بھی نہیں دے رہا ہے، آپ کو پتہ چلا کہ اس کی حالت ٹھیک نہیں ہے، وہ دے سکے ایسی حالت پہ نہیں ہے، وہ زکوٰۃ کا مستحق بن گیا ہے۔ اب آپ یہ چاہے کہ چلو میں نے جو 5 دیے ہیں 2 سال پر 3 سال پر میں اس کی زکوٰۃ کی نیت کر لوں، تو نہیں کر سکتے، تو یہ نیت نہیں کر سکتے۔ جب آپ ادا کریں اس وقت نیت ضروری ہے، آپ خود ادا کریں یا آپ اپنا کسی کو وکیل بنائیں کہ بھائی یہ میرے پیسے ہیں، آپ میری طرف سے زکوٰۃ ادا کر دے، تو جس وقت وکیل کو دیوے اس وقت نیت کر لے کہ یہ میری زکوٰۃ آپ ادا کر دے۔ تو یہ ہیں شرعی حیثیت سے زکوٰۃ کے تملیک مال مخصوص لشخص مخصوص بنیتہ، اس کی نیت کے ساتھ زکوٰۃ ادا کی جائے۔ اب زکوٰۃ میں نے پہلے ہی بتایا کہ کن پر فرض ہے، ہر بالغ عاقل مرد اور عورت پر، جب کہ وہ نصاب کا مالک ہو جائے اور اس کے اوپر 1 سال گزر جائے، تو 1 سال کے گزرنے پر، سال کے گزرنے کے بعد 2.5% اس پر لازم ہوتی ہے۔ مثلا کوئی شخص رمضان کے یا رمضان میں دینا ضروری نہیں ہے کہ رمضان ہی میں دیوے، لیکن چونکہ رمضان میں زیادہ ثواب ملتا ہے اس لیے عامةً مسلمان اپنی زکوٰۃ رمضان میں نکالتے ہیں۔ تو مثلا کوئی شخص شعبان میں نصاب کا مالک ہوا، اس کا مستقل ایک نصاب ہے کہ کتنا نصاب ہے تو اس پر زکوٰۃ فرض ہوتی ہے۔ مثلا شعبان کی 15 کو آدمی کے پاس اتنا مال آ گیا، اتنا نصاب آ گیا جس کے اوپر زکوٰۃ فرض ہوتی ہے، جیسے 52.5 تولہ چاندی یا 7.5 تولہ سونا۔ لوگ یہ سمجھتے ہیں کہ سونے کی زکوٰۃ ادا ہوتی ہے، میں اس پر آگے تفصیل کہوں گا۔ یہ تو نصاب ہے، نصاب ہے 52.5 تولہ چاندی یا 7.5 تولہ سونا کا جب مالک ہو گیا، یا سونا چاندی نہ ہو لیکن کیش اتنے ہو جس سے آپ اتنا سلور خرید سکتے ہیں یا آپ کے پاس ہے، تو یہ بھی نصاب کہلائے گا۔ آج آپ مالک ہوئے تو آج زکوٰۃ فرض نہیں ہے، 1 سال اس پر گزرے اور 1 سال کے درمیان آپ کے پاس اور بھی آتا رہا، کسی طریقے سے آپ کماتے رہے، اس میں اضافہ ہوتا رہا، انکریز ہوتا رہا، یا کسی نے آپ کو ہدیہ دے دیا، گفٹ دے دیا، کچھ رقم یا کچھ سونا، تو یہ بھی اسی کے ساتھ ملایا جائے گا۔ یا ہمارے اعزا اقارب اور ریلیٹیو میں سے کسی کا انتقال ہو جائے، اس کی طرف سے ہمیں وراثت میں ملے سال کے درمیان، وہ بھی اسی کے ساتھ ایڈ کیا جائے گا۔ اور جب نیکسٹ ایئر شعبان کی 15 آئے تو آپ کا 1 سال پورا ہوا شمار ہوتا ہے۔ اب آخری سال میں آپ دیکھیں کہ کتنے آپ کے پاس آپ کے خرچ کے بعد سیونگ ہوا ہے۔ یہ نہیں سوچا جائے گا کہ یہ وراثت کا تو فلاں مہینے میں ملا ہے، یہ گفٹ تو فلاں مہینے میں ملی ہے، اس پہ تو ابھی 1 سال ختم ہوا نہیں ہے، ایسا نہیں ہے۔ جب سے آپ مالک ہوئے نصاب کے، اس وقت آپ کا سال شروع ہو گیا، درمیانے سال میں جتنے بھی آتے رہیں گے جو وہ اس میں ملتا رہے گا، پھر آخری تاریخ کو جب آپ کا سال پورا ہوتا ہے، اس سال پورے سال کے خرچے کے بعد آپ کے اوپر کوئی قرض ہو تو قرض کو بھی کم کر دے، اس قرض کے بعد جتنا آپ پر سیونگ ہے آپ کے پاس، اس سیونگ پر 2.5% زکوٰۃ آپ کو ادا کرنا ہوگا، دینا ہوگا۔ اب یہ 8 قسم کے مصارف جو ہیں اس کو قرآن کریم نے بیان کیا ہے، اس کو دینا ہوگا۔
What is the definition of zakat? Now we're going to start with the actual fiqh of zakat. The definition of zakat in Islam is to give into the possession of someone a specific amount of money with the intention of giving zakat. There are 8 categories mentioned in the Quran. The amount, specific amount, is referring to the 2.5%. The possession of specific individuals refer to those categories that are mentioned in the Quran. And just like any other action where we need intention, in zakat you also need intention. So you give an example that if a person gave someone a loan and then that person is not able to repay you and that person becomes a recipient of zakat, you can't now make this intention that the loan I've given that individual, I will consider that as my zakat. Because at the time of giving that individual, there was no intention of zakat. That was rather it was a loan. So you can't make that intention thereafter. The next question is, who is zakat fard upon? Who has to give zakat? So any individual who is mature, who is sane, male and female, and owner of nisab after a year. Once they have the minimum amount that zakat becomes fard upon, and that amount remains in their possession for over a year or for 1 year, then zakat will become fard. So he gives an example that if a person becomes the owner of nisab on the 15th of Sha'ban, example, and he also points out that it's not necessary that we give zakat in Ramadan. It's not necessary that zakat becomes fard in Ramadan. Zakat rather becomes fard whenever a person accumulates enough wealth that reaches the threshold of nisab. From that day, your 1 year will start. And you calculate 1 year from that day, considering the Islamic date. Again, keeping in mind the Islamic date. So we won't look at today being March 9 and think that from March 9 and next year March 9. No, rather we will look at Ramadan, 9th of Ramadan. And next year, 9th of Ramadan, which will be 10 days earlier, right? Zakat will become fard. So we take the Islamic date, and whenever this person becomes owner of nisab, the 1 year will start. When the year concludes, the following year when it ends, then whatever increase the person had throughout the year, whatever wealth they accumulated, whatever wealth came into the possession, maybe they gained inheritance, maybe somebody gifted them, maybe they got a bonus at work, whatever the case may be, everything will be collected, everything will be totaled together, and zakat will be given on the total amount. So it's not that you give zakat on separate amounts that you receive. If for example today you have a certain amount, and then 3 4 months later somebody gets a chunk in inheritance, example, uh, 1 year will not be counted separately for that amount that's received thereafter. When the year concludes, whatever total you have, you add everything together and give zakat on the total.
अब एक सवाल ये है कि ज़कात किन को दी जाए, किन को न दी जाए। तो फ़िक़ही ज़बान में कहते हैं कि उसूल और फ़ुरू को नहीं दिया जाएगा। उसूल का मतलब ये है कि हम जिनसे पैदा हुए, हमारे माँ बाप, दादा दादी, नाना नानी, जो भी ऊपर तक हो, इसको उसूल कहते हैं। उसको ज़कात हम नहीं दे सकते। इसी तरह फ़ुरू, फ़ुरू का माना हमसे जो पैदा हुए, यानी हमारी औलाद, बेटे बेटियाँ, पोते पोतियाँ, नवासिया, जो भी हो, जो फ़ुरू कहलाती है हमारी, उसको नहीं दे सकते। इसी तरह हस्बैंड वाइफ को नहीं दे सकता, वाइफ हस्बैंड को नहीं दे सकती, ये ज़कात नहीं दे सकती। इनके अलावा जो भी मुस्तहिक हो, मिस्कीन हो, गरीब हो, चाहे भाई हो, बहन हो, कज़िन हो, कोई भी हो, बल्कि रिलेटिव को देने में ज़्यादा सवाब मिलता है, तो इसको दे सकते हैं। और शरीयत ने एज़ाज़ और इज़्ज़त रखने का इतना ख्याल किया है कि आपको सामने वाले को ये कहना भी ज़रूरी नहीं है कि ये ज़कात है। आप अपने दिल में नीयत कर ले, तहक़ीक़ कर ली कि ये मुस्तहिक है, ये एलिजिबल है, इसको ज़कात देनी चाहिए। आप नीयत कर ले ज़कात की, और उसको ज़कात का इन मेंशन करना भी ज़रूरी नहीं है। अब बल्कि आप उसको हदिया कहकर भी दे सकते हैं कि ये गिफ्ट है मेरी तरफ से आपको। आप दिल में नीयत कर ले ज़कात की। सामने वालों को लोअर नहीं करने का है कि भाई मैं आज ज़कात का मुस्तहिक हो गया हूँ, मेरे क्या हाल आया है कि मैं ज़कात लेने वाला बन गया हूँ, ये भी ज़रूरी नहीं है, बल्कि आप इनको हदिया कहकर भी दे सकते हैं। आप अपनी नीयत ज़कात की कर ले। तो ये तो वो हुआ कि किन को दी जाए, किन को न दी जाए, एक बात। दूसरी उसूली बात यह है कि आदमी का जो वेल्थ होता है, जो उसके पास माल और दौलत होती है, उस पर एक तो मालिक भी हो और उसका कब्ज़ा भी हो। वो ख़ुद मालिक भी है और कब्ज़ा भी हो। लेकिन कब्ज़े की दो शक्ल होती है। एक तो ये है कि आदमी ने खुद अपने खुद अपनी ज़ात से उस कब्ज़े को छोड़ दिया है। मसलन मिसाल से समझो कि मालिक है, $10,000 उसके पास है, लेकिन वो $10,000 बैंक में रख दिया है, तो अभी उसका कब्ज़ा नहीं है। या $10,000 आपने किसी के यहाँ अमानत के तौर पर रखा है, तो ये $10,000 जो है आपके कब्ज़े में अभी नहीं है, लेकिन ये कब्ज़ा आपने खुद अपने इख्तियार से छोड़ा है। और एक वो होता है कि मालिक तो होते हैं लेकिन अभी आपका कब्ज़ा है ही नहीं, आपके कब्ज़े में आ ही नहीं सकता। जैसे यहाँ जॉब में से कुछ तनख्वाह लेकर कंपनी कुछ बढ़ाती है उसके अंदर कि भाई इतना कंपनी बढ़ाएगी, लेकिन वो कंपनी ने अभी आपको दिया ही नहीं है और आप कंपनी के पास से ले भी नहीं सकते अभी। ये तो जब मौका आएगा उस वक्त कंपनी देंगे। तो कब्ज़ा मालिक भी हो और कब्ज़ा भी हो, लेकिन कब्ज़ा अगर ख़ुद के अपने इख्तियार से उसने ज़ाय किया हो, बेकार किया हो, तब तो ज़कात फ़र्ज़ हो जाएगी। लेकिन ऐसा माल कि जो आपके कब्ज़े में अभी आया ही नहीं है और आप उस पर कब्ज़ा कर भी नहीं सकते, आपके इख्तियार में नहीं है, उसके लिए दूसरा मसला है फिर कि उस पर अभी ज़कात फ़र्ज़ नहीं होगी। जी।
So the next discussion or the next thing that was mentioned was were the recipients of zakat. Who are the recipients of zakat? In the Quran, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has mentioned 8 categories of people. Those categories will be mentioned, but in short, you can't give zakat to anyone that is above you in your family tree or that is below you in your family tree. So parents, grandparents, great grandparents, children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, etc. Above you, below you in the family tree, you can't give those. Those that are beside you in the family tree, siblings, cousins, uncles, aunts, you can give them. That's fine. Rather, it's encouraged. In Sharia, it's encouraged that you give zakat to your family friends, those who are related to you, those who are close to you. There's double the reward. One is obviously discharging the zakat, and also the reward of keeping good ties and assisting family and friends. So that is rather encouraged. Um, Another category that you can give is spouses giving each other. So that's also an exception. So anyone above you in the family tree, anyone below you, spouses, you can give them. Anyone else you can give. Um, it's also Shaykh also mentioned that it's also not necessary. So the discussion comes up that when you're giving zakat to family and friends, perhaps it seems a little degrading that you're giving zakat to your brother or to your sister or to your relative, and they may not like it. So it's not necessary that when you give it to them, you tell them it's zakat. You can classify it as a gift. You can tell them that I'm gifting this to you, but you yourself make intention of giving zakat to them, and that's also fine. So you don't need to disgrace them or put them down. Make them feel that they are receiving zakat and they're in hard times or whatever the case may be. Rather, you tell them it's a gift and you make intention of zakat. Another point to keep in mind that zakat is only necessary when you have ownership of the wealth and possession at the same time. Sometimes a person has ownership, but they don't have possession yet, as is in the case in some of these plans that we have from the government, pension plans or whatever the case may be. Sometimes a person doesn't have possession. If they don't have possession, then zakat will not be fard, although it's considered yours, although it belongs to you, but you don't have possession of it yet. So two things are necessary: ownership and possession. We'll get it perhaps into a little bit more detail about that later on. That doesn't mean that every pension plan or every retirement saving plan or every plan that you have, the educational saving plan, RESPs, that doesn't mean that it's not yani zakah is not necessary upon that. These are scenarios where the money is given by your employer, but it was never yani it doesn't belong to you. We're not talking about the contributions that you yourself are making. Those are your contributions. Those are contributions that you've agreed upon. So although it's not physically in your possession, but you have agreed upon it to have it kept, separate for you, zakat will be fard upon that. Like the examples, you have wealth, but you don't have it with you. You've kept it, at the bank, or someone else has it in their possession temporarily, just holding it for you. It's yours. You've let go of that possession intentionally, right? But it still belongs to you and it's still yours. So zakat will be fard upon that.
लफ्ज़ अरबी सदक़ात जो हैं, वो सदक़ात के मातहत उसकी किस्में होती है। नफली सदका चैरिटी देते हैं, इसी तरह वाजिब होता है और फ़र्ज़ होता है। फ़र्ज़ तो ज़कात है। वाजिब, मसलन किसी ने मन्नत मानी कि मेरा फ़लाँ काम हो जाए तो मैं $500 जो है सदका कर दूंगा, ये वाजिब हुआ। इसी तरह सदक़तुल फ़ित्र जो हम ईद के दिन निकालते हैं, वो भी वाजिब है। तो जो सदका फ़र्ज़ हो और वाजिब हो, वो नन मुस्लिम को नहीं दिया जाता, वो मुसलमान को ही देना है। नफली सदका है अपनी तरफ से, अल्लाह की राह में देता है नफल, वो मुस्लिम नन मुस्लिम किसी को भी दे सकते हैं, जो भी हाजतमंद हो उसको दे सकते हैं। ये भी एक बात बीच में याद रख।
It's also mentioning one point in mind. I need to keep in mind that there are different types of charities that are encouraged in Sharia or perhaps obligated as well. One is fard, one is wajib. These are both compulsory. Fard is obviously the zakat. Wajib is something that you obligate upon yourself, or the sadaqatul fitr, the amount that we give before Eid Salah or on the day of Eid, any before Eid. These wajib sadaqat, those that are obligated, and zakat, which is fard, this can only be given to Muslims. Any other types of charity, sadaqah that you give, which is optional, nafil, you give for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? That can be given to anyone, regardless of their faith.
अब देखिए सवाल हो तो कीजिए कोई आया
So I'll briefly go over in short how to calculate the zakat, and then inshallah we can open up to questions. We also had a form that was sent out with the poster, and there were some questions that came. So inshallah, I'll answer some of those as well. Um, Zakat will be calculated. We there like was mentioned that there are three types of wealth that a person probably has, or two types. One is gold, silver, and cash. Anything that a person has, which is in the category of gold, silver, or cash, you will get the total amount of that, the value of that, and you will calculate the total. Similarly, if you have business, you will calculate the total of the business wealth, right, and equate it. When a person reaches the threshold of nisab, now what is nisab? Nisab is the minimum amount that a person has to have for zakat to be fard. The nisab today, wait, give me a second. The nisab today in gold is approximately 11,800 dollars, $810 in approximately $11,810. That's the nisab of gold, and the nisab of silver is 918. There's a big difference in the two. At the time of the Prophet ﷺ, these two nisabs were equivalent. There wasn't this big difference. It was 20 gold coins or 200 silver coins, and they were equivalent in value. If a person had 20 gold coins, then zakat will be fard. If a person had 200 silver coins, zakat will be fard. And like I said, they were equivalent in value. The ulama mentioned, and the ruling is whatever is the lesser of the two, that will be taken as the nisab. So the lesser of the two obviously is the amount of silver, which is 612.36 grams, and the value of each gram approximately today is $1.50. You can calculate, it fluctuates every day. So whatever amount I'm giving today is not necessarily the amount that's going to be the nisab next week, right? It fluctuates every day. So you and I have to calculate whenever our day comes and find out how much the nisab is based on the value of the grams. So the ruling is whatever is the lesser of the two, you will take that as the nisab, which is the amount of silver, $918 approximately today. So if a person has approximately that much, and they've had that much for a year in their possession, now they will be obligated to give zakat. So you take the total amount that you have, gold, silver, cash, you calculate that total amount, and you give 2.5% of that. There are some frequently asked questions that we get related to zakat. So inshallah, I'll go over some of them that we received, and then of course we'll open it up here. There's a question that comes about mortgages and loans that a person has. A person perhaps financed a car. A person has a house, right? So debts obviously are reduced from the assets that you have. When you're calculating zakat, you will calculate the total amount that you have, and you will deduct and reduce any debt that you have. So if you owe somebody money, you can reduce that from your assets, from the total that you have, and give zakat on the remainder. The long-term debts that you have, and you were classifying as long-term, referring to financing cars or mortgages. If a person were to deduct a total amount of mortgage, then perhaps this person wouldn't give zakat for years, 10, 15, 20 years, right? And instead, perhaps they will be a recipient of zakat if you were to take that into consideration, right? So the ulama have given a leeway, and they say that you can calculate the amount of mortgage, or if you've financed a car and you have payments, monthly payments that you are going to be making, then you can calculate the amount for a year, for the coming year. You calculate the total amount of that, and that you can deduct from your total assets that you have, and then thereafter give zakat. If a person is giving rent, for example, same thing applies. You can perhaps calculate, a year's worth of rent, and then perhaps, deduct. These are all. This is not stuff that you have to do. Let us keep this in mind as well, right? This is not something that you have to do. If I financed a car, I don't have to calculate the amount that I'm going to give in the following year and deduct it. I can do that, but I don't have to do that. Um, The 2.5% that you're giving on $1,000, that's $25, right? Which is affordable to almost, yeah, to anyone and everyone. A person has the phones that we carry in our pockets are worth thousands of dollars, right? They're $1,000 just for the phone. Your monthly plan that you have, you're paying 50, 60, $70, $80 a month just for your phone. You need to use your phone every month. So if we're giving $25 for every thousand that we have, right? This doesn't seem like a burden on any individual. So if possible, and if you don't have to, there's no need for you to deduct this. If a person has a substantial amount, it's a great amount and it makes a huge difference, and they want to and they need to, deduct this, then ulama have given this 1 year time period that you can deduct for the following year. So you will deduct that and then you will give on the rest. There's a question regarding the money of children. This is a frequently asked question. It comes every year. RESP, the education savings plan, right? A person has money set aside for their kids, or they have children and the children have their own money. Um, the point to remember is you only give zakat on the amount of money that you own, that you possess. If it's your ownership, you will give zakat on it. If it's not your ownership, you will not give zakat on it. If the wealth belongs to your children and the children are not mature yet, they will not give zakat on that. There is no zakat on that. The key point here to remember is that it's not your possession. If you have children, they have money, they've been given money, and you've kept it aside for them, it belongs to them, it doesn't belong to you, there's no zakat on that. You've kept aside money for your children for their education, and you're planning in the future for them. You've made intention that this money I'm keeping aside, it doesn't belong to me anymore, it belongs to my kids. When they grow up, when they need it, they will use it. This doesn't belong to you anymore, it's not your possession, you will not give zakat on it. However, if your intention is you are just keeping it to a side, but it still belongs to you, your intention is you will spend it on your children, but it's still your possession. You have not taken it out of your possession and made intention to give it into the possession of your children. Then you will still have to give zakat on that. It is still your possession. So what that means is it's your possession. You have intention that you are going to use it for the education in the future. But if you end up using it, if you end up needing it, you have the right to do that. It's still yours. On the other hand, if you've made intention that this money no longer belongs to you, it belongs to your children, it's their possession, and then you end up, falling upon tough times, or you need it, an emergency arises and you need that, you can't use that at your own will. If you were to use that, that will be a loan that you have taken from your children. You have to pay them back because it doesn't belong to you anymore, right? So we have to clarify this. Every parent, every individual can clarify this for themselves. If it's your possession, you will give zakat. If it's not your possession, if it belongs to your children and the children are immature, they will not give zakat. If they're mature, of course, they will give their own zakat, right? They have to be educated. They have to be taught that if they're mature, they have to calculate their own possession. They have to understand that they also have to give zakat, and they will give accordingly. There are some questions regarding. Give me a second. So there's a question here that if a person had an amount of nisab, or a person gave zakat last year upon a certain amount, and in this year they got more, do they only give zakat on the addition that they got, or upon the total amount? So you will give zakat on the total amount. If you've already given, example, a person had $25,000 last year and they give zakat upon 25, and this year they have 50. So you're not giving zakat only upon the extra 25 that you got this year. Rather, you will give zakat on the entire 50, the total that you have. Another question that we frequently get is the RRSP and the retirement saving plans, right? So to keep that in mind, there are different forms. There's one that is a contribution that an employee makes to their own retirement saving plan, and then there is a benefit that a person gets from the company. If it's a contribution that you are making, right, this is your money that you are putting aside for yourself. Your employer may match your contribution. That contribution that your employer made to match yours has not yet come into your possession, so you don't have to give zakat on that. But your own contribution that you've made, you will give zakat on that. Yes, it is understood that if you are to withdraw that amount now, there are some taxes and there may be some penalties. You can deduct the tax, you can deduct the penalties. Whatever is remaining, right, you will give zakat on that amount. There's another form where there's a benefit that comes from the company. It's not a contribution you're making, rather it's a benefit. If it's a benefit from your employee, right, then this is not a contribution that you're making, rather it's a benefit from your employer that you have not yet received. It has not come into your possession. As it was clarified before, that there are two things that are necessary: ownership and possession. So if you have ownership, it is the employer has kept it for you, has given it to you. It's considered your ownership. It's under your name, but it hasn't come into your possession yet. It's a benefit that has not yet reached you, right? So this is not in your possession yet. You will not have to give zakat on that. So there are different forms of these savings plan. I would advise every individual that if you're not sure about your particular plan that you have, then you consult with a scholar, right, and come to a conclusion upon your particular scenario. But there are different scenarios. Some you may be obligated to give zakat, and some you may not. Another frequent question that we get is zakat upon investments, stocks, and crypto, and other forms of investments. If the intention of you investing in stocks and the market is a long-term investment, what I mean by long-term investment is not necessarily a time frame. Not necessarily a time frame. What I mean by long-term investment is that you have no intention to sell. If somebody purchases stock and their intention is they will sell it, but not immediately, they will sell after some time, or they're anticipating for the price to increase whenever the price increases, and let's say that price increases after 3 years, but the intention to sell is still there, right? Then this is not considered a long-term investment. What I mean by long-term investment is you've bought stocks and you are invested in the company. You don't have intention to sell. Rather, you have bought it, to receive the dividends, or for the increase in value, and just to grow your portfolio. Long-term investments, you are not giving zakat on the total amount of the portfolio. You will give zakat on the percentage of the zakatable assets that the company has that you've invested in. So this is a responsibility upon every investor, that they do some background check, due diligence. They do the research, and they try to find out how much of the company that they've invested in has zakatable assets, what percentage of it, and then you would give that percentage. You would give zakat of that percentage, which is a zakatable asset. So let me make it a little more simpler. It's like you invest in a business. You have a business. You're not giving zakat on the fixtures of your business. You're not giving zakat on the building of the business that you have, the property that you have, but you're giving zakat on the material, on the stock that you have, whatever you're selling, right? You're giving zakat on all that. So you will calculate that. That's a zakatable asset. That's a zakatable item in business. The fixtures that you have, the machinery, the tools, the building, you're not giving zakat on that, although that's the value of the business. So similarly, if you've invested in a company, the company may have a building, they may have machinery, they may have other things that are considered value in the value of the company, but you're not giving zakat on that. Rather, you're giving zakat on things that are zakatable, right? That you would give zakat on. And like I said, it's the responsibility upon every investor to do their own investigation. Some ulama have done their research, and sometimes it becomes difficult for a person to come to that conclusion. So they've come to a amount that they say that just to be on the safe side, give about 25% of your ownership in that company. 25% of it would be zakatable. Not give 25%. 25% of your portfolio of that long-term investment would be zakatable. This is talking about the long term. If it's not long term, if it's short term or even long term, but with intention to sell. Again, right? The point here is you have intention to resell, no matter how long it takes, even if it takes 5 years, right? But your intention is whenever the price increases, I will sell, and it took 5 years to increase. That's fine. But as long as you have intention to sell, you will give zakat on the total amount of your portfolio, in the stocks, even in crypto. So crypto it's considered a currency that is not really an investment where you are receiving dividends. For crypto, you would give it a total amount. For stocks, right? There's this difference. So if you have intention to sell, you will take the total portfolio amount. If you don't, then you will take whatever percentage is zakatable. Another question, if anybody has questions from here, we can take some questions here as well. You you've given someone money like they have it. You have to differentiate. Is that a gift to them or is it a loan to them? If it's a gift, no, 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 no. You have to clarify. If it's a gift, if you've given it to them, that it doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to them, right? Then you don't give zakat on it. If it's still your possession and you just kept it there for them and you say, okay, you use it whenever you want if you need it, that's your possession. You will have to give zakat on that. It belongs to you. Ownership is important, right? Ownership is important. You have to understand and you have to differentiate who the owner is. If it belongs to you, you give zakat. If it doesn't belong to you, you don't give zakat. If you've given a person a loan, that also is money that's owed to you. You also have to give zakat upon that. There is an option that, uh, you know, for loans, there's an option that you don't give zakat at the moment and you give it when you get it, but you have to backtrack. For example, you've given a person zakat and they are going to pay you in a few years. You have the option of holding on to it and you're not giving zakat now. You can give zakat on it once you receive it, but you will backtrack for the years that you haven't give it and give zakat on the previous years as well. So it works out the same, whether you give it now or later, right? You're still going to be giving zakat on it every year. The only option is you can just delay and postpone it, right? But you're still giving zakat on it. So loans is yours, right? You own it. You've given it to someone. You will give zakat on it. If it's a gift and you've given it to them, it doesn't belong to you. That's not your wealth anymore. The amount that's not accessible, how did it get there? No, I understand. I'm counter questioning. I understand it, brother. My question to you is: there's two categories. You said accessible and not and non-accessible. The non-accessible. How did the wealth get there? You put it there. You put it there. That's your money. Whether you have access to it now or not, it's locked up. Regardless, you have to give zakat on it. You chose to put it there. You did not put it there. It would still be in your possession, in your access, right? So if you willingly are making that contribution, you willingly are putting it there, you are still obliged to give zakat on it. Regardless, if you're putting it in there, you are giving zakat. You chose to put it there. You chose to lock it up, right? It's still yours. The only way or the only scenario perhaps is when you're not giving it is sometimes the employee gives a benefit to you, right? But it's not given to you. Like it's held for you, but it's not yours. It the employee can make a contribution for you and they can also give a benefit to you. That hasn't come in your possession yet. That can be excused. Any contribution you're making, even if it's locked up, you will give zakat on it. Yeah. Yeah. So whatever loans you have, you can deduct the loans from your assets. Yeah. If you've used a credit card, if you use a credit card, right, you have bills to pay. You using a credit card technically means like it's your money that you spent. You have to pay them back, right? So it's a loan. Any credit that you owe, any credit cards that are outstanding, any bills that are outstanding, right? You will factor all of that in. Those are all debts that you owe. Those are all bills that you have to pay. So you can consider all of that and deduct it. Yes. Sure. Yes. Yes. Gold that is not usable, like for example, like what? Like what? Like a biscuit? You mean? Like, oh, no, no, no. Any gold or silver you have in your possession, whether you're using it, whether it's jewelry or whether it's just on the side sitting, it doesn't matter. Yes, you have to pay zakat on gold and silver. Yes. Yes. Sorry? Diamonds. No, there's no zakat on diamonds. Yes.
डायमंड के बारे में इतना आप उर्दू समझते हैं? डायमंड के बारे में इतना याद रखना चाहिए कि कोई शख्स गोल्ड इसलिए बेच देता है और डायमंड ख़रीद लेता है ताकि मुझे ज़कात अदा न करना पड़े। तो इसकी नीयत अल्लाह जानते हैं कि इसने क्यों ऐसा किया। बल्कि बाज़ उलमा का आज तो फतवा इस पर है कि डायमंड पर ज़कात फ़र्ज़ होगी, इसलिए कि बाज़ डायमंड तो सोने से ही महंगे होते हैं।
Yeah.
जी।
Is your question like once you have money, when you have to give zakat, or how much time you have to distribute it? Okay, so this was discussed, but I'll break it down again, right? If a person, example, you don't have any money today, tomorrow you become owner of the minimum amount, right, that you need for zakat to be fard, which is called nisab in the Arabic in the term, right? It's called nisab. So you become owner of nisab, which is the minimum amount that a person has to have for zakat to be fard. You will give zakat 1 year after you become owner of nisab. Zakat will be fard 1 year after that, not in between. Any money that fluctuates in between, it doesn't really matter. Even if you go below the nisab throughout the year, that doesn't matter. Right? At the end of the year, if you still have the amount of nisab or more, you will give zakat. The only exception is if in between the year you go absolutely bankrupt. A person has nothing, right? Then when they regain the amount of nisab, then the year will restart. So you won't, meaning that 1 year that started previously will be cancelled out now because they went bankrupt. And then they will restart once they accumulate enough to meet nisab. But if in between it fluctuates, it just goes up and down. Even if it goes below nisab a little bit, even if it fluctuates, that will not be taken into consideration at the end of the year. If you have the amount, then you will give it. A second question that I can probably understand from that is, once you calculate zakat, how much time do you have to distribute it? Do you have to give it away right away, or can you give it, gradually? Take your time. You don't have to give it away right away. It's encouraged that you give it away. It's better that you give it, but you don't have to. You can keep it to a side, and as the need arises or as people need it, example, somebody in your family, your friends, they are a recipient of zakat, and you want to give zakat to your family member, but you don't want to give them so much at one time. So you give them a little bit this month, then you give them a little bit next month after that, and a little bit the month after. That's also fine. You can do that. You don't have to give all of it right away. You can give a little bit at a time, right? But it's better that you give it before the following year, so that it doesn't keep accumulating. And it's also important to note that you should keep this to a side and also let someone know, right, that this is zakat money in case something happens, right? And like our life is not guaranteed, obviously, but somebody passes away and the wealth is there, they won't know that this is zakat. So it's good to keep it to a side and note it, keep it noted, let someone know as well, right, that this is zakat, so that it's not mixed up and you can gradually give as well. Sorry. But yeah, whether the gold is new or old, it doesn't really matter. So what you can do is you can find out the value. Okay, gold is not always 24 karat, right? Sometimes it's less. You you can always find out the value of the gram of the amount of carats that you have, right? Whether it's old or new doesn't matter, right? So if it's not 24 karat, then you don't have to give zakat on 24 karat gold. Obviously, it's not 24 karat. If it's less than that, right, then you give according to the value of that, right? And like I said, whether it's old, new, whether it's you're wearing it, whether it's stored in a safe in the bank, doesn't matter. Every individual is responsible for their own zakat. You are not responsible for anyone else. No, gold, silver, gold, silver. What the husband can give zakat on behalf of the wife. You can and you can give zakat on behalf of someone with their permission, right? You inform them, you take their permission, and you give on their behalf. But you can't give it without their permission. So, example, a wife only has jewelry, but she doesn't have enough cash, right? And the jewelry is so much that she has to give, a certain amount, let's say 500 in cash, in zakat, but she doesn't have $500 cash. The husband can give on her behalf, right? She still has to give it because she has the gold, so she still has to give it, but the husband can give on her behalf with her permission. That's fine. But every individual is responsible of giving their own. Yeah, go on. But when you are able to have them, what do you expect? What do you mean 8,000, right? What, like debts and stuff, like loans? Okay, you have 2,000, right? If you don't have it, spend the money. You don't have it, you're not giving zakat on it. Oh, right, right. Yes. You had it at that time. You had it at the time when it was obligated. Then you would consider that. Yes. If before it becomes obligated, you end up spending it. You don't have it in your possession anymore. Although you had it before, like previously, you don't have it now. When it becomes obligated, you don't have to give it. You don't have it. Like it's not yours anymore. We'll take one more question. You had a question? Yeah. OSAP is a loan. You can take that as a long-term loan if you want, like a year. Take 1 year's amount. The student can calculate the amount that they will be paying in the year and deduct that much. Yeah. Intention is to sell, then sell. Intention is what matters. It doesn't matter if you're in the country or not. If your intention is to sell, then it's to sell. Give zakat on the total value of it. If anybody has any other questions, inshallah, then you can always meet with the scholars here, or you can always email the masjid. Inshallah, we'll try to get back to you. Jazakumullah.
سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت